Has Jesus returned in the form of a stingray? And if so, how will that affect Shane Gillis' appearance on SNL? Welcome to Alternative Jargon. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Alternative Jargon, episode number 33. I'm going to fix the camera real quick. It's a little bit crooked, and I am not going to deal with that OCD for the next half hour. Am I a little bit more centered up there? Yeah, it looks a little bit better. Now you can see my trash can. So, a female stingray. Actually, before we do that, it's Friday. Have some ASMR. If you've seen those new Dunkin' Donuts commercials on TikTok with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, they got me. They absolutely hooked me. I saw the munchkins that were on the stick and the iced coffee, and I got up today and I said, I just have to have it. So, ladies and gents, a female stingray, by itself in a tank with no other male stingrays, has become pregnant. This is breaking news that I am not seeing covered by most of the lamestream media, if you will. Now, first off, I don't know how stingrays mate. I did not research that. I mean, logistically speaking, I have no idea. But they don't think that it's possible that this thing mated with any of the other animals in its tank. I think there were some other fish in there, yada, yada, yada. They don't think it did. And I'm not sure if that would be possible. Like a shark that also can, zap people. We don't need that. That would introduce a whole new line of crappy movies on the Sci-Fi Network, and we just really, really don't need that right now. But apparently, scientists have come to the conclusion in this situation that this reproduction happened through a process called parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis. I'm usually good with pronunciation, but that one is a little bit confusing. But I guess this is when an egg fuses with another cell and it becomes an embryo, and boom, you got a little baby stingray growing inside mama there somehow. Now, this is not being reported in the way that I am going to report it anywhere else, but you heard it here first. Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, has come again in the form of a stingray. Okay? Now, before you will act all shocked, this is shocking, quite literally shocking. And, the fact that they think that this thing was reproduced through a process called parthenogenesis, excuse me, where are all of the evangelicals on this one? I have not seen any of my fellow Christian influencers hop on this train yet, so I'll be the first one to do it. Let the trumpets sound, because he's back. He's back, and he's better than ever, like he never left. Now, I don't think he's born yet. I don't know what the pregnancy period is for stingrays, but if he's born this upcoming December, I mean, what more do you want? What more do you want? How much more proof can you see here? I just hope that all of you guys out there have not closed the door of religion in your life, because the book of Revelations is wide open, baby. He's back. He's back. Okay? On the 8th day, God said, let there be no redemption for Steve Irwin. Unfortunately, that is the downside to all of this, is that the Messiah has come back in the form of a creature that killed one of our beloved nature influencers. So if we could get a moment of silence for that, crikey. It's just insane. But before we do that moment of silence, this also has led me to the belief, potentially, that Steve Irwin was the Antichrist. Now, before you say, no way, let me explain myself here, okay? He was one with nature. He was loved by many. He rose to immense power within his industry. Look, I don't know all of my scripture by heart, but that sounds like the Antichrist to me. And he was struck down by the wrath of God by a stingray, which we now know to be the Messiah. It's sort of poetic, and I just hope that, I don't want this to be the case. I really don't want Steve to be that prophet, to fulfill that prophecy, because I thought he was a good guy. And I really hope that this is not true. I hope I'm wrong about this. But, he's sort of checking too many boxes here, and I'm getting a little bit worried about this. So it's a bigger zap on his legacy than anything that I've heard before. Look, if the Tampa Bay Rays somehow win the World Series this year, then we're really going to know. We're really going to know then. But yeah, from this article, quote, the Stingray's name, by the way, Charlotte. Okay. Again, unexpected name. But, quote, Charlotte currently lives in a tank that's about 2,200 gallons, 8,300 liters for my European listeners, or nearly the size of a construction dumpster, end quote. This is how they're treating Christ. They have our guy in a tank that they are comparing to a dumpster. It is absolutely despicable. It is absolutely disgraceful. It is disgusting the way that they are treating this fish. Okay. Yeah. It's gross. And I'm sort of left speechless that they are going to compare this wee little manger that this stingray is going to be born into. They're going to compare it to a dumpster. But, that sort of does tie back to the way that he was originally born in that wee little manger in Bethlehem. Quote, they also want to put up live cameras to record her and her offspring. My question for this, I have a question about this proposition to put cameras in the tank for Mary and her baby stingray that's about to be born. I'm not going to call it Charlotte. It's an undeserving name. Let's call it Mary too. They came out with a second Holy Mary. She's back. But my question about these cameras is how many, and if it's going to be 3, are they going to be 3 wise cameras? 3 wise cameras in this tank. And they will deliver, frankincense and myrrh to the tank, potentially. Look, all of this has happened in North Carolina. The last place you would ever think for the Messiah to be reborn. I know. It's kind of disappointing. North Carolina. I mean, what's there? The beach and a couple colleges. It's not really on my bucket list, to be honest. But, look, I don't think that Israel is currently in a great state for the Messiah to be reborn there. So I understand why they had to relocate from the original venue to somewhere else. But North Carolina it's kind of boring. I understand that, Bethlehem over there, probably not the best place for him to come back right now. So they had to move the location. I understand, but North Carolina, it's whatever. So, yeah, I don't know. They're focused on other things over there at the moment. But if you see a bright star light up one of these days or weeks in the coming future, pull out your compass and see if it points toward North Carolina. North Carolina is south from me. So if I see a south star pop out in the sky, I won't be surprised because I already knew he was back. But yeah, I don't know if the article listed when he's supposed to be born. Excuse me, but he'll be back, and that's good news. So I don't understand why there isn't a cult following for this fish. It's very poetic, in fact, that, Jesus fed 5,000 with fish, and now this fish is going to feed 8 billion. Okay. And nobody's talking about it. Nobody. I thought for sure that, whenever I go through the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A, they'd have a poster for it up. They'd say, we are now open on Sundays, but only for our aquatic life friends. Only for our marine animals, customers. I mean, Christianity has long been Chick-fil-A's biggest marketing strategy, and the fact that they're not hopping on this is quite shocking. When is Mike Lindell going to come out with the MyPillow that's in the shape of a manta ray? These are all questions that really do need to be answered, and I just don't get it. There's a lot of business to be made off of the Messiah, and nobody is seizing the moment. One of the other logistical things about this that I'm sort of curious to see how our boy works it out is I don't know how the fish is going to make the lame walk and the blind see. We've got to teach it how to walk first, I would assume. That's the first thing, is we got to teach him how to walk. But maybe instead of teaching people how to walk, he'll teach people how to swim. I don't know. We will see. But I understand this whole bit is really stupid that I'm doing right now. It's incredibly dumb. But I just was having some fun with it. I didn't know that it was possible for animals to asexually reproduce like this unless their name was Holy Mary. So I had to take it and run with it. But I found this article in the quote-unquote oddities section of apnews.com. And to be honest, this section of the website might be my new favorite thing on the entire internet. This might fuel the podcast going forward for the foreseeable future, because a lot of the stories that are in the news today are just boring. Politics this, politics that, Biden pooped his pants, Trump did the same, yada, 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 Nikki Haley, whatever. Boring. So I really like to report on things and discuss things that everyone else is not. Because why tune into another show discussing the same two things that are in the news that week, right? I like to keep it interesting. Nobody wants my take on, the West Bank, okay? Nobody wants to hear from me about the Gaza Strip, okay? But yeah, a lot of great stuff included in this section. This was just the first one that popped up. The unfortunate thing is that it doesn't appear to be updated very often. You scroll past the first few and things become a little bit outdated. Let me see what else they got here. This is what happened when a Cold War era missile was found in the garage of someone's home. Good stuff. Really good stuff. And I really want to take this whole page and talk about all of it, but I'm going to have to milk this over the course of the next 10 episodes or so. So for now, yeah, you scroll down 10 articles and they're talking about Groundhog Day, which was 3 weeks ago. So unfortunately not uploaded or not updated too often, but this is the meat and potatoes of the world right here. This is the stuff that I want to be looking at. I don't care what the military-industrial complex is up to right now. I want to know about the asexual reproduction of stingrays in North Carolina. That is the stuff that I just sink my teeth into day in and day out, and it keeps the brain well lubricated and well fed, because I cannot sit here and scarf down the same 3 stories for the next 9 months until we get a new president. And still, until things start to heat up with that, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? But yeah, this oddities page, I wish I had found it years ago, because, good Lord, it's just chock full. So thank you, AP News. Really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. Here's another one. An Oklahoma judge who sent more than 500 texts during a murder trial resigns. He must have been in a deep argument. And it must have been a boring murder. For you to sit there and send 500 texts, there's no way it was that gruesome or interesting if you're going to text during it, If I'm a judge on a murder trial, I'm going to be sitting forward with my hands clasped, listening to every detail. So maybe tell the murderer to have a more interesting case next time. I'm going to switch gears here, and this was a thought that I had the other night before I was falling asleep while listening to music, and it's just a theory I have about nostalgia in our generation. And my theory is that our generation, I would say millennials and maybe even Gen X all the way to this generation, is not going to have as much media nostalgia as past generations, because everything is so accessible now. If you think about it, past generations really had to seek media out. If you wanted to buy an album, you had to go to the store. If you wanted to listen to that album, you had to have a CD player or record player. You had to, if you wanted to listen to a new song, take one disc out, put another in, and then maybe you sit that CD on a bookshelf and it sits there for 20 years and you forget about it. And then one day you break it out and you listen to a song again and you are flooded with memories from 20 years ago, because it's a song that's meaningful to you and special to you, but potentially didn't have a lot of commercial success and isn't always on the radio. And now you hear this song for the first time in forever, and you get smacked in the face with memories. Good or bad, but a lot of memories, because it used to be your favorite song, right? Things like that are not really, they're harder to replicate now, because everything is so easy to access. So I think about when I was a kid, I had a little mini hoop in my room, and I had a radio. And I would listen to the radio every evening, blasting music in my room while I pretended to be Kevin Durant, shooting hoops and dunking on my mini hoop that was about 5 feet off the ground. And it was so good. I would be drenched in sweat after like 3 hours of this every night. And it was great. But the point I'm trying to reach with this is that I would listen to that radio and I would just listen to the top hits. Obviously, I'm a young kid. I'm just going to listen to pop. So it was like will.i.am and LMFAO on repeat every night in 4th grade. And, I was in this habit for a year or two, maybe 3. And obviously, the popular songs changed over that period of time. So then I get my iPod years later, and I start to download songs, and I go, oh my gosh, this song reminds me of 4th grade when I would play in my room. And I download it, and I listen to it. And like I said, I'm smacked in the face with nostalgia, because I haven't heard that song in years. But now that we have a streaming platform, and it has every song on it, and everything, and this and that, you can't really do that anymore. It's harder and harder to avoid that stuff for that long of time because you're going to hear it again. And I've found that obviously I like those old songs. I'm not just listening to them to get flooded with memories. I'm listening to them because I like them. So then I put those songs back into my regular music playlist, my regular, habitual songs that I always play. And then I start to form new memories from those songs. And those memories replace the old ones, kind of. Not fully. I mean, I'll always remember the first time I was exposed to that song or whatever. But that, it's not as deep and as pure of nostalgia as it once was, because I've now been exposed to it every day again. So we are more aware of our own nostalgia than ever before, and we have all this stuff right at our fingertips. So you can't really dust off a CD after 20 years like you used to be able to. And I think that goes for shows, that goes for movies, that goes for everything, not just music nowadays, because it is all so accessible. So you can't dust anything off anymore. Everything is always dusted off now. There's no dust left, okay? I would say the dust has settled on this, but there's no dust to settle. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to get at. But, I'll be scrolling on TikTok and I'll see someone make a TikTok with a song in it from 2007. And I would normally go, oh my gosh, I haven't heard this song in forever. But no, I've heard that song 10 times in the last 30 minutes I've been scrolling on TikTok, because now it's trending again. And don't get me wrong, this is great. I think it's great that we are keeping older things in the loop and that older things are still holding up and people still love them. I am by no means saying that this is a bad thing, but it's just an observation that I had that, we're not going to get hit with that same strong flood of memories like maybe we were in the past. And this just goes for media, because obviously other forms of nostalgia and memories are not like that. Maybe you are walking down the street and randomly you smell something and it takes you back to when you were 5 years old. You don't even know what you smelled, but it hit you. You breathed it in once and you go, holy crap, I'm at daycare. And then you exhale and then you inhale again and it's gone. And you're like, what was that? So nostalgia like that, we're always going to have. This is just media nostalgia. It's all too accessible and it's not going to hit the same. So, but my question is, because of this, are we going to appreciate these other forms of nostalgia more than media nostalgia in the future? Things like smells, physical touch, locations, people. So this might actually be a good thing in the long run, because it might make us form memories more based off of real life experiences than media, which I think could be a really good upside for people, to not sink all of our human energy and memories into intangible things that, in the grand scheme of things, might not be as important as those real life experiences. Look, this is just a theory. I was falling asleep to music and I heard an old song and it made me think, yeah, I used to like get super, reminiscent when I would listen to this song. And now I just don't, because I hear it all the time again. So that's what made me think of this. It also kind of relates to the fact that we used to have to, quote unquote, go to the internet. Like the internet was a place that you had to sit down and teleport yourself into at a desktop. And then as soon as you leave that desktop, you are disconnected. Now the internet's always in our pockets. It's everywhere. So that's sort of a similar thing. Speaking of internet, though, AT&T just had a big outage the other day. And I wonder how many people whose phone went out were eager to see their phone just flooded with notifications whenever their service came back. And then, they're frothing at the mouth, and they see that little 5G pop up in the top right, finally, after hours. And then they get a notification from the NFL app and from Clash Royale. My deepest sorrows go out to those people. I'm really sorry. I just hope that you are climbing the trophy road higher than ever before. So, this kind of does show how fragile our society is, though. And I strongly believe that if the power grid went out for 20 minutes in the United States of America, our country would probably fall within that amount of time. It really wouldn't take much. So I do have AT&T, but luckily I was not one of the lucky winners of this power outage contest. Shane Gillis is hosting Saturday Night Live. Whoa. Restart. Shane Gillis is hosting Saturday Night Live tomorrow night. And this is really an all-time comeback story, and I couldn't be rooting for him harder. I'm really excited for what he comes up for his monologue. He's undoubtedly going to make a joke or two about getting fired. He has to. You have to address the elephant in the room. So I'm really excited to see what he does with that. He's definitely going to put a great twist on it. And I don't think I've ever in my entire life actually watched Saturday Night Live. I've watched clips of it on YouTube because who hasn't? But I probably won't watch this one live. I'll probably be out with my friends or something, but I'm really excited to see how it goes. I'm also excited to see what his co-host 21 Savage has to say, because I don't think I've ever heard 21 Savage say like a sentence in my life. I'm sure he's done interviews and stuff, but I've literally never heard him talk. So I'm really excited to see what he says. And Saturday Night Live, the TikTok account, dropped like a little teaser trailer thing with Shane in it and 21 Savage in it. And in the teaser trailer, 21 Savage just said 21 a couple times, and that was it. So excited to see what he has to say. I'm sure he's going to give us some really good insight on something there. But, Shane always stays really humble about everything. He's not one to brag or boast or do anything like that. But I know this has to feel so good for him deep down. I know this has to feel like getting that one spot in your back that you can't reach, itched, and scratched. It's got to feel amazing. The show that he was fired from 4.5 years ago now needs him more than he needs them. It is very poetic. It's beautiful, and I couldn't be happier for him. He's having an all-time run right now in the comedy world, and I don't think it could be happening to a better person. He's an awesome guy, super down to earth, and thus far has not let any of the success go to his head one bit. And I hope it stays that way, because we've seen a lot of these comedians, they have one period of success, one successful sellout tour, and then they think that they're a god, and they're just not funny anymore. I can't really see that happening to Shane Gillis, but really hope it doesn't. So, and he's from Mechanicsburg. He is 10 minutes down the road from where I live, so that's awesome. And it does show that anyone can do it. So he is, it's him and Optic Scumpy who we have repping our name around these parts. I'll be honest, 99% of stand-up comics I don't find funny at all. And maybe it's just because I don't like stand-up comedy as a medium. I heavily prefer comedy podcasts to comedy stand-up sets. I think it's a much better medium. I think sitting in a room and talking to a camera is actually a lot funnier than talking to a crowd, because I've noticed that even some of my favorite comedians, their podcasts are always 10 times funnier than their live shows, because they can just be completely raw and unfiltered on their podcast. And by that, I don't mean be offensive. I just mean they can be the purest form of their comedy self, if that makes sense. Whereas they get up in front of a crowd, and even the most, what do I want to say? The most edgy comedians are always going to cave to the crowd a little bit and kind of just give the crowd what they want instead of doing what they want to do. There are very few, for me, that I've seen that kind of break through that. Norm Macdonald is an all-time great. And I think one of the greatest things about his comedy, no matter what form it was in, is that he was doing his comedy for himself. He was getting up there to make himself laugh, just as much, if not more, than to make that crowd laugh. And a lot of comedians, I think, are not really like that. They're just going to give the crowd what they want. But, Norm Macdonald, if he said a joke and no one in the room laughed but him, he still considered it a success because he laughed. So that was a great thing about him. But yeah, no, I like podcasts a lot more because there is no one to cave to. And, playing into a crowd is never as funny as just saying whatever you're going to say. I also like solo podcasts or group podcasts way more than guest shows when it comes to the comedy aspect, at least. I think whenever you have a group of people that have great chemistry, or even just one person who is insanely funny by themselves, that's always better than, I guess, the guest model. Joe Rogan's whole podcast is the guest model, and I basically never listen to his podcast because it's just not really my thing. Unless he has a really interesting guest on, then I'll listen, but it's never to laugh. And I wouldn't say you would ever listen to Joe Rogan to laugh, even though he's a quote-unquote comedian. But yeah, even guys like Theo Vaughn and Shane Gillis and all those really funny guys who have shows, if they have guests, I'm just never as into it. And I'll usually watch the show to just see the interview instead of laugh, which that's the point. That is the point. But dude, I just love solo podcasts. And I think that's the funniest form. Either that or just a group that never has guests. Those are the best. Those are my favorite. A lot of people would consider that an awful take, but that's just my take. And can I say what? I'm going to finish up on this with the whole comedy thing. Crowd work is awful. Don't do crowd work, please. I feel like it is the cheapest form of engaging the audience. Look, obviously you have to engage the audience, but Matt Rife flirting with somebody's girlfriend in the audience, that's not comedy. That's just, it's not, I don't know what it is, but it's not comedy. I feel really terrible for women who are dragged to Joe Rogan shows, and I feel just as terrible for men who are dragged to Matt Rife shows. They are both in some level of Dante's Inferno hell. Not sure which level, but they're both there. So yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching wherever you did it. We will see you next week. Goodbye.